General Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the human diplomatic vessel Harmony's Voice, watching the massive Caltharian battle cruiser approach through the viewport. 900 years of peace hung in the balance of this meeting. The Empire had requested this summit in neutral space, claiming they had urgent matters to discuss regarding the ancient truce. Sarah's weathered hands clasped behind her back as she studied the alien vessel. At 62, she had seen more conflicts than any human alive. Yet the last 4 decades had been peaceful thanks to the Treaty of Sirius Prime. The Caltharian Empire and humanity had maintained their borders, traded cautiously, and avoided the bloodshed that had nearly destroyed both civilizations centuries ago. "General, they're requesting permission to dock," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the communication station. His young face showed nervousness that Sarah had long since learned to hide. "Granted," Sarah replied calmly, "but keep our defensive systems on standby. Something feels wrong about this meeting." The Caltharians were a proud warrior race, standing nearly 8 feet tall with crystalline skin that shifted colors based on their emotions. Their technology had always been superior to humanity's, which made the original truce surprising to many. What most people didn't know was that humans had something the Caltharians respected: an absolute refusal to surrender, even in the face of certain death. Sarah remembered the stories her grandfather had told her about the war. Entire human colonies had chosen to detonate their own planets rather than submit to Caltharian rule. The aliens had never encountered such fierce determination, and it had earned humanity a grudging respect that led to the peace treaty. The docking procedure completed with mechanical precision, Sarah made her way to the main conference room, her aide Captain Lisa Rodriguez walking beside her. "General, intelligence suggests the Empire has been mobilizing fleets along their outer rim. This could be related to that activity." Sarah nodded grimly. "Or it could be about the new human colonies we've established near the neutral zone. Either way, we need to be careful. The Caltharians don't request meetings unless something significant has changed." The conference room was a sterile, white chamber with a large oval table at its center. Sarah took her position at the head of the table, her dark blue uniform bearing the insignia of the United Earth Defense Force. Behind her stood her small security detail. Though she doubted their weapons would mean much against Caltharian technology, the alien delegation entered with heavy footsteps that echoed through the chamber. Leading them was High Commander Jacques, his crystalline skin currently a deep purple indicating serious intent. His forearms moved with practiced military precision as he approached the table. Behind him came 3 other Caltharian officers, their skin colors shifting between orange and red. Colors Sarah had learned indicated aggression and distrust. "General Chen," Jacques spoke in accented but clear English. "We appreciate your willingness to meet with us on such short notice." "High Commander," Sarah replied formally. "It's been many years since our peoples have needed to discuss matters at this level. I hope we can resolve whatever concerns have brought you here." Jacques' skin flickered to a darker shade. "Indeed, there are concerns. Grave concerns about humanity's recent activities that may violate the terms of our ancient agreement." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "I'm not aware of any violations. Perhaps you could be more specific?" "The colony ships, General. 17 new human settlements established in the past 2 years, each one pushing closer to our agreed boundaries. Some of our military analysts believe this represents preparation for an expansion into Caltharian space." This was news to Sarah. While she knew about the new colonies, she hadn't realized they were being perceived as aggressive moves. "High Commander, I can assure you that these colonies are purely civilian in nature. Humanity's population growth has required new settlements, but we have no intention of violating the neutral zone." "Words, General. We have heard such words before, in the time leading up to our first conflict." Jacques' lower arms gestured dismissively. "But actions speak with greater truth than words ever can." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward slightly. "Sir, with respect, every one of those colonies was established well within human space, at least 50 light-years from the nearest boundary marker." The Caltharian officer to Jacques' left, whose skin had turned an aggressive red, spoke for the first time. 50 light-years is nothing when you possess faster-than-light travel capabilities. It is a strategic positioning that cannot be ignored. Sarah felt the tension in the room escalating. This was going worse than she had feared. "High Commander, perhaps we can arrange for joint inspections of these colonies." You'll see that they have no military installations, no weapons manufacturing, nothing that could threaten the Empire. Inspections? Jactel's skin shifted to an almost black color. You offer to show us what you wish us to see. This is not acceptable. The Empire requires guarantees, not performances. What kind of guarantees? Sarah asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. The immediate cessation of all colony ship launches. The withdrawal of human presence from any system within 100 light-years of Caltharian space. And the establishment of Imperial monitoring stations within human territory to ensure compliance. The room fell silent. Sarah felt her jaw tighten as she processed the demands. These weren't terms for maintaining peace, they were terms of surrender. The Empire was essentially asking humanity to cede nearly a third of their territory and submit to alien oversight. High Commander, Sarah said carefully, those terms are completely unacceptable. They would effectively end human expansion and place our people under foreign control. No sovereign nation could agree to such conditions. Jactel rose from his chair, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. Then perhaps, General Chen, it is time to reconsider whether the old agreements still serve both our peoples. The threat was clear. Sarah stood as well, meeting the alien commander's gaze despite the significant height difference. Are you suggesting the Empire wishes to terminate the Treaty of Sirius Prime? I am suggesting that the Empire will do what is necessary to ensure its security, regardless of ancient pieces of paper. Sarah's security detail tensed, their hands moving instinctively toward their weapons. But Sarah held up a hand to stop them. This moment was too delicate for sudden movements. High Commander, I strongly urge you to reconsider. 900 years of peace should not be thrown away over misunderstandings that can be resolved through diplomacy. Jactel's skin had shifted to a deep, angry red. The time for diplomacy may have already passed, General. Perhaps it would be best if you return to your leaders with our requirements. They have 72 standard hours to respond. The ultimatum hung in the air like a poison cloud. Sarah knew that no human government would accept those terms, and she suspected the Caltharians knew it too. This meeting hadn't been about negotiation. It had been about delivering a declaration of war with the thin veneer of diplomatic protocol. As the Caltharian delegation filed out of the conference room, Sarah remained standing at the table. Captain Rodriguez approached her quietly. General, what are your orders? Sarah stared at the empty chairs where the aliens had been sitting. Get me a direct line to Earth Command, and start preparing emergency broadcasts to all human colonies. I'm afraid the longest peace in human history is about to come to an end. The communication to Earth Command took 6 hours to establish through the quantum relay network. Sarah stood in the secure communications chamber aboard Harmony's voice, facing the holographic projection of Admiral James Harrison, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Defense Force. His weathered face showed the strain of someone who had hoped never to see another war. Sarah, I've reviewed your initial report. Are you certain the Empire is serious about these demands? Harrison's voice carried across the light years with crystal clarity. James, I've never seen Jactel this rigid. His skin remained combat red for most of the meeting. In all my years dealing with the Caltharians, I've learned that when they maintain aggressive coloration for extended periods, they've already made their decision. Harrison rubbed his forehead, a gesture Sarah recognized from their academy days 50 years ago. The President is convening an emergency session with the Colonial Council, but we both know what the answer will be. No human government can accept those terms and remain sovereign. Then we need to prepare for war, Sarah said bluntly. And James, this won't be like the old conflicts. The Empire has had 9 centuries to advance their technology. Our last intelligence estimates suggest they've developed weapons systems we can barely comprehend. What's your assessment of our chances? Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. In a direct military confrontation? We'd lose within months. The Empire has 3 times our population, superior technology, and they've maintained a larger military force throughout the peace. But James, you know as well as I do that humanity doesn't fight direct confrontations. A grim smile crossed Harrison's face. Guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run tactics, making every victory cost them more than they can afford to lose. Exactly. But first we need to buy time. I'm going to request another meeting with Jactel. Maybe I can extend their deadline, give us more time to prepare. Sarah, be careful. If they've already decided on war, they might not let you leave that ship. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. She made her way back to the observation deck, where the Caltharian battlecruiser still hung in space like a metallic predator. Its weapon systems remained powered down, but Sarah could see the barely contained energy signatures that indicated readiness for immediate combat. Lieutenant Webb approached her with a tablet. "General, we've received a response to your request for a second meeting. The Caltharians agree, but they want to conduct it aboard their vessel." Sarah studied the message. It was a risk. Caltharian ships were designed to be intimidating to foreign visitors, and she would be completely at their mercy. But it might also show them that humanity wasn't afraid, a quality that had earned their respect before. "Inform Captain Rodriguez she's in command while I'm gone. And Webb, prepare my dress uniform. If this is going to be my last diplomatic mission, I want to look the part." 2 hours later, Sarah walked through the airlock connecting the two ships. The Caltharian vessel immediately assaulted her senses. The corridors were larger and taller than human standards, illuminated by harsh blue light that hurt her eyes. The air itself felt heavy, designed for beings much larger than humans. Jactel waited for her in what appeared to be a ceremonial chamber rather than a conference room. The walls were covered with crystalline formations that pulsed with inner light, and the ceiling stretched up into shadows. Ancient Caltharian weapons hung on display, testament to their warrior culture. "General Chen," Jactel greeted her, his skin now a neutral blue. "I am surprised you accepted our invitation. Many humans would consider it unwise to board an alien vessel during such tense negotiations. High Commander, if we're going to find a path to peace, both sides need to show good faith. I'm here to explore every possible alternative to conflict." Jactel gestured to a seat that had been modified for human proportions. "Sit, General. Let us speak of alternatives." Sarah settled into the chair, noting that she was surrounded by Caltharian officers. It was clearly a power play, but she refused to be intimidated. "I've been in contact with my government. While they cannot accept your original terms, they are willing to discuss modifications, such as a joint commission to oversee human colony expansion, with Caltharian observers present during the establishment of new settlements, shared monitoring stations in the neutral zone, operated by both species, and a formal renewal of the peace treaty with updated terms for the modern era." Jactel's skin shifted to a lighter blue, indicating consideration. For a moment, Sarah felt hope that diplomacy might still prevail. But then one of the other Caltharian officers spoke in their native language, a series of crystalline chimes and harmonic tones that sounded aggressive even to human ears. Jactel's response was equally harsh, and Sarah watched his skin darken as the conversation continued. Though she couldn't understand the words, the body language was unmistakable. There was significant disagreement among the Caltharian delegation. Finally, Jactel turned back to her. "General, there are those among my people who believe that humanity's aggressive nature makes you unsuitable for peaceful coexistence. They point to your species' history of constant warfare, even among your own kind. High Commander, we've had 900 years of peace between our civilizations. Doesn't that count for something? 900 years of preparation, some would say. General, I will be honest with you as one soldier to another. The Empire is divided on this issue. Some, like myself, believe that humans can be reasoned with, that conflict can be avoided. Others believe that war is inevitable, and that it is better to act first while we still hold clear technological superiority." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the alien ship's atmosphere. "And which faction is winning? The vote in the Imperial Council is scheduled for tomorrow. If the war faction prevails, our 72-hour ultimatum will be reduced to 24 hours. The Empire will demand immediate human compliance, and any refusal will result in military action. And if your faction wins, then we return to negotiations and perhaps find a path that both species can walk together." Sarah leaned forward. "High Commander, what can I do to help your faction succeed?" Jactel's skin flickered through several colors before settling on a deep purple. "That is the question, isn't it? The war faction claims that humans cannot be trusted, that you will use any peace to prepare for eventual aggression. They need to be proven wrong. How? A gesture of good faith. Something that demonstrates humanity's commitment to peace, even at significant cost to yourselves." Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. What could humanity offer that would satisfy alien doubts without compromising their security? What if we suspended all new colony ship launches for a period of 5 years, and allowed Caltharian inspectors full access to our existing border colonies? It would be a start. But the war faction would claim it is merely a delaying tactic, that you would resume expansion once you felt safe again. Then what do they want? Jacques was quiet for a long moment, his skin cycling through several shades. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. They want proof that humanity has changed from the warrior species that nearly destroyed itself and threatened to do the same to others. They want evidence that you can choose peace over strength when the choice matters most. I don't understand. General, the war faction believes that humans only respect strength, that you will only maintain peace when facing a superior force. They want humanity to demonstrate that you can choose peaceful solutions, even when you believe you might win through conflict. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. The Caltharians wanted humanity to show weakness, to prove they weren't a threat by demonstrating they wouldn't fight even when they could. It was the one thing no human government could ever agree to, and the aliens knew it. High Commander, you're describing an impossible situation. You're asking us to prove we're peaceful by surrendering our ability to defend ourselves. No sovereign species could make that choice. Jacques' skin had turned almost black. Then perhaps, General Chen, the war faction is correct. Perhaps this conflict has always been inevitable. As Sarah prepared to leave the alien ship, she realized with growing dread that this hadn't been a negotiation at all. It had been a final attempt by the peace faction to find an impossible solution. The war faction had already won. They just hadn't announced it yet. The next 24 hours would determine whether 9 centuries of peace would end in a conflict that might destroy both civilizations. Sarah returned to Harmony's voice with a heavy heart and immediately called another emergency conference with Earth Command. This time, the quantum relay connected her not just with Admiral Harrison, but with President Elena Vasquez and the entire Colonial Defense Council. The holographic projections filled the communications chamber, giving Sarah the unsettling feeling of being surrounded by ghosts. General Chen, President Vasquez began, her voice carrying the weight of leadership during humanity's darkest hour in centuries. Admiral Harrison has briefed us on your assessment. Do you truly believe war is inevitable? Madam President, the Caltharian peace faction is fighting a losing battle against their own hardliners. High Commander Jacques essentially told me that unless humanity proves we're no longer a warrior species by voluntarily disarming ourselves, the Empire will view us as an eternal threat. Director of Colonial Affairs Marcus Chen leaned forward in his projection. General, what about the compromise proposals you discussed? Joint monitoring, inspection protocols? They would buy us time, nothing more. The fundamental issue isn't about colonies or boundaries. It's about the Caltharian belief that humans are inherently aggressive and can't be trusted with military capabilities. Admiral Harrison's projection spoke up. Sarah, how much time do we have? The Imperial Council meets in 18 hours. If the war faction wins, our ultimatum deadline drops to 24 hours. Given communication delays, we'd have perhaps 6 hours to respond once they announce their decision. President Vasquez was quiet for several moments, her expression grave. General, I need your honest military assessment. If war comes, what are our chances? Sarah had been dreading this question, but she owed them the truth. Madam President, in a conventional war, we lose. The Empire has superior technology, larger fleets, and a unified command structure. They could probably take Earth itself within 6 months. And in an unconventional war, that's our only hope. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our adaptability and our refusal to give up. We can make every victory cost them dearly, target their supply lines, use guerrilla tactics that their rigid military doctrine isn't designed to handle. General Patricia Wong, head of strategic planning, activated her microphone. Sarah, we've been running projections based on your reports. Even with guerrilla warfare, the casualties would be enormous. We're talking about billions of deaths across human space. I understand that, General. But the alternative is surrender, and that's not who we are as a species. President Vasquez nodded slowly. General Chen, I want you to return to the Caltharian ship and inform High Commander Jacques that humanity rejects their ultimatum. Make it clear that we will not be intimidated into surrendering our sovereignty, but that we remain open to genuine negotiations. Ma'am, delivering that message might be signing my death warrant. The Caltharians may not let me leave their ship alive. I understand the risk, General, but someone needs to look them in the eye and show them that humanity won't back down. If anyone can do it with dignity and strength, it's you. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with the weight of her mission. Captain Rodriguez appeared at her side, her face reflecting the same grim determination Sarah felt. "General, the crew is ready to support whatever decision you make. We all understand what's at stake. Lisa, I need you to prepare a message torpedo with our full intelligence data and send it back to Earth Command. If this goes badly, they need to know everything we've learned about Caltharian intentions and capabilities." "Already done, ma'am. It launched 20 minutes ago." Sarah managed a tired smile. "You always were 3 steps ahead, Lisa. Now help me record a message for my family. If I'm about to start a war, I want them to know why." An hour later, Sarah stood once again in the airlock preparing to board the Caltharian vessel. This time she wore her full dress uniform with all her decorations. If this was to be her last act as a representative of humanity, she would do it with proper ceremony. The Caltharian ship seemed even more ominous than before. The corridors were now filled with alien soldiers, their crystalline skin gleaming red and orange with aggressive intent. Sarah walked through their ranks with her head held high, refusing to show any fear despite being surrounded by beings who could kill her with their bare hands. Jacques waited in the same ceremonial chamber, but now he was accompanied by a much larger delegation. Sarah recognized the signs of a formal military tribunal. This wasn't a negotiation, it was a judgment. "General Chen," Jacques' voice carried a note of regret. "I had hoped you would bring different news from your government. High Commander, I bring the only message a free people can deliver. Humanity rejects your ultimatum. We will not surrender our sovereignty or our right to defend ourselves. However, we remain willing to discuss reasonable solutions that respect both species' legitimate interests." A new Caltharian stepped forward, his skin a brilliant crimson that practically glowed with hostility. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. "I am War Commander Thekmor, leader of the Imperial War Council. Your defiance has been noted and recorded." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "War Commander, defiance is the wrong word. We're standing up for the principles that any free civilization must defend. Surely the Empire can understand the concept of honor." "Honor?" Thekmor's skin flared brighter red. "You speak of honor while your species spreads across the galaxy like a plague, consuming resources and expanding without regard for other civilizations. We expand to provide homes for our people, just as the Caltharian Empire has done for centuries. The difference is that we've honored our agreements and stayed within our designated boundaries. Boundaries that grow ever closer to Imperial space. Boundaries that threaten our security with each passing year." Sarah felt her own anger rising but forced herself to remain calm. "War Commander, fear of what might happen decades or centuries from now is not justification for aggression today. The Empire is allowing paranoia to destroy 900 years of peace." Jacques stepped between them, his skin cycling through colors that suggested internal conflict. "General Chen, the Imperial Council has reached its decision. The war faction has prevailed by a narrow margin. Humanity has 24 hours to comply with our original demands, or the Empire will take military action to ensure its security. And if humanity refuses," War Commander Thekmor answered with obvious satisfaction, "then the Treaty of Sirius Prime is void, and the Empire will do what it should have done centuries ago: end the human threat permanently." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah realized that this moment would be remembered by history as the end of the longest peace in galactic civilization. Everything that followed would trace back to this chamber, this conversation, this choice. "War Commander, you're making a grave mistake. Humanity has never been a threat to the Empire. We've honored every agreement, maintained peaceful relations, and worked to build trust between our peoples. You're destroying all of that based on hypothetical fears. Fears that your own actions have validated, General. Your military preparations, your expanding colonies, your refusal to accept reasonable security measures, all prove that humans cannot be trusted." Sarah laughed, a sound that seemed to surprise the Caltharians. "Military preparations? Our defense budget is smaller than it's been in 5 centuries. Expanding colonies. We're growing at a slower rate than during the early peace period. War Commander, you're not responding to human aggression, you're creating it." Thekmor's skin turned almost black with rage. "Enough. The decision has been made. You have 24 hours to deliver your government's acceptance of our terms, or face the consequences." Sarah straightened to her full height, knowing that her next words would echo through history. Then I'll deliver humanity's response right now. We will not surrender our freedom to ease your paranoia. We will not abandon our colonies to satisfy your expansionist ambitions, and we will not submit to alien oversight of our sovereign territory. Then you have chosen war, General Chen. No, War Commander. The Empire has chosen war. Humanity has simply chosen to remain free. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of weapons being powered up throughout the Caltharian ship. Sarah realized that she might not live to see the next hour, let alone the war that was about to begin. But she had delivered humanity's message with the dignity and strength her species was known for. Whatever came next, the galaxy would know that humans had faced extinction with courage, rather than surrender with cowardice. The tension in the ceremonial chamber was so thick it seemed to have physical weight. Sarah stood surrounded by Caltharian warriors, their weapons trained on her, their crystalline skin glowing with the red fire of combat readiness. She could hear the low hum of energy weapons charging throughout the ship, and she knew that Harmony's voice was probably already being targeted by the battlecruiser's main guns. War Commander Thekmor stepped closer, his massive frame towering over Sarah. General Chen, you understand that you may not leave the ship alive. Your vessel can be destroyed with a single weapons burst. Your defiance accomplishes nothing except ensuring your own death. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. War Commander, if killing me would prevent this war, I'd gladly sacrifice my life. But we both know this isn't about me. This is about your Empire's decision to destroy the peace that has served both our civilizations well. High Commander Jacques Tel moved between them, his skin showing the deep purple of distress. General, there may still be a way to avoid bloodshed. If your government were to agree to a partial withdrawal from the outer colonies, perhaps we could negotiate a revised agreement. Jacques Tel, Thekmor's voice carried a warning. The decision has been made. There will be no further negotiations. But Sarah sensed an opportunity. The peace faction hadn't given up entirely, and Jacques Tel was still trying to find a solution. High Commander, what exactly are you proposing? A strategic withdrawal from the 10 most recently established colonies, Caltharian monitoring stations in the neutral zone, and a moratorium on new settlements for 50 years. In exchange, the Empire would guarantee the security of all remaining human territory. It was still an unacceptable surrender of human sovereignty, but it was less extreme than the original demands. Sarah knew her government would reject it, but she also saw a chance to drive a wedge between the Caltharian factions. High Commander, I would need to consult with my government about such a proposal. Would the Empire be willing to extend the deadline to allow for proper consideration? Thekmor's skin flared brighter. There will be no extensions. The deadline stands. War Commander, Jacques Tel's voice carried surprising authority. If there is a chance to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, should we not at least consider it? The Imperial Council authorized you to negotiate terms, not to prevent all negotiation. The two Caltharians faced each other, and Sarah realized she was witnessing a confrontation that would determine the fate of both civilizations. Thekmor's faction wanted war and would accept nothing less than total human submission. Jacques Tel's faction wanted peace but needed something to show the Imperial Council that humans could be reasonable. Very well, Thekmor said finally. General Chen may return to her ship to consult with her government. But the deadline remains unchanged. 24 hours, no more. As Sarah prepared to leave, Jacques Tel approached her quietly. General, when you speak to your leaders, please consider the alternative to these terms. The Empire has weapons that humanity has never seen. This war would be a catastrophe for both our peoples. Sarah nodded. High Commander, I'll convey your message. But you should know that humanity has survived catastrophes before. We have a saying, better to die on your feet than live on your knees. That saying may cost billions of lives. General, and surrendering our freedom would cost billions of souls. The return to Harmony's voice felt like emerging from a nightmare into merely a bad dream. Sarah immediately convened her senior staff and established communication with Earth Command. The news she had to deliver would shock the human leadership, but they needed to know exactly what they were facing. President Vasquez appeared on the holographic display, her face showing the strain of sleepless hours. General Chen, please tell me you have good news. Ma'am, the Caltharians have offered a modified proposal, but it's still unacceptable. They want us to abandon our 10 newest colonies, accept alien monitoring stations, and halt expansion for 50 years. Admiral Harrison leaned forward. And if we refuse? Then in 20 hours, the Empire begins what they're calling security operations to eliminate the human threat permanently. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah could see the weight of decisions settling on the president's shoulders, the choice between submission and a war that could destroy human civilization. General Wong spoke first. "Sarah, you mentioned new weapon systems. What kind of capabilities are we looking at?" "Unknown, but the Caltharians seem confident they can end human resistance quickly. General, we need to assume they have planet killers, probably multiple varieties." President Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment. "General Chen, what's your final recommendation?" Sarah had been expecting this question and had her answer ready. "Madam President, we cannot accept their terms. If we surrender now, humanity becomes a client species forever. The Caltharians will dictate our growth, our development, our future. That's not survival, it's slow extinction. And war? War at least gives us a chance. It won't be easy, and the casualties will be horrific. But humans have never willingly accepted slavery. We fight, and we make them pay for every world they take." Director Chen activated his microphone. "General, what about civilian evacuations? Can we get people away from the most vulnerable colonies?" "Sir, we have 20 hours. Even if we started evacuations immediately, we could only save a fraction of the population. Most people are going to have to shelter in place and hope our defenses hold." President Vasquez was quiet for several minutes, and Sarah could see her wrestling with the most difficult decision any leader could face. Finally, she spoke. "General Chen, please inform the Caltharians that humanity rejects their ultimatum in all its forms. We will not abandon our colonies, we will not accept alien oversight, and we will not surrender our sovereignty." "Ma'am, that's essentially a declaration of war." "No, General. That's a declaration that humanity chooses freedom over slavery, regardless of the cost." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah with the task of delivering humanity's final answer to the Empire. As she prepared to contact the Caltharian ship, Captain Rodriguez appeared at her side. "General, the crew is requesting permission to prepare for combat." "They know what's coming," Sarah nodded. "Grant it. And Lisa, make sure our message torpedo systems are ready. When this starts, Earth Command needs real-time intelligence on Caltharian capabilities." The communication link to the Caltharian ship opened, and War Commander Thekmore's image appeared on the screen. His skin was now so red it looked like flowing lava. "General Chen, I trust you bring your government's acceptance of our generous terms." "War Commander, humanity has carefully considered your proposal. Our answer is no. We will not abandon our colonies, we will not accept foreign oversight, and we will not surrender our sovereignty to ease your paranoia." Thekmore's expression showed satisfaction rather than surprise. "Then you have sealed your species' fate, General. The Empire will begin security operations in exactly 20 hours. I suggest you use that time to make peace with whatever gods humans worship. War Commander, before you begin your security operations, consider this. Humanity has survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, plagues, and world wars. We've been knocked down before, but we always get back up. Always. Your past struggles were against natural disasters and your own primitive conflicts. You now face the full might of the Caltharian Empire. There will be no getting back up from this, General Chen." Sarah smiled grimly. "That's what the last empire that threatened us believed. They were wrong too." The communication ended, and Sarah knew that the countdown to war had begun. In 20 hours, 900 years of peace would end in fire and blood. But she also knew something the Caltharians didn't understand. When humans were pushed to the wall with no way out, they didn't surrender. They became more dangerous than their enemies could imagine. The Empire was about to learn why humanity had earned its reputation as the species that refused to die. The next 18 hours passed with the mechanical efficiency of a countdown to doomsday. Sarah remained on the bridge of Harmony's voice, coordinating with Earth Command and watching as both civilizations prepared for a war that would reshape the galaxy. Throughout human space, emergency broadcasts were warning civilians to seek shelter, while military units were scrambling to defensive positions that everyone knew were inadequate. Captain Rodriguez appeared at Sarah's side with a steaming cup of coffee. Real Earth coffee, not the synthetic stuff most ships carried. "Thought you might need this, General. It's going to be a long day." Sarah accepted the cup gratefully. "Lisa, I want you to know that serving with you has been one of the privileges of my career. When this starts, things are going to happen very quickly. General, the crew and I have discussed the situation. We want to stay here and document what happens. Someone needs to record how this war began, and Harmony's voice is in the perfect position to witness the first shots. Lisa, this ship isn't armed for combat. If we stay, we're probably going to die. Ma'am, with respect, we're all probably going to die anyway. At least this way, our deaths will serve a purpose. Sarah looked around the bridge at her crew, young men and women who had joined the diplomatic service to build peace, not witness its destruction. Yet every face showed the same grim determination. They understood what was at stake and had chosen to face it with courage. Very well, Captain, we stay. But keep our engines hot and be ready for emergency jump if I give the order. On the main view screen, the Caltharian battlecruiser hung motionless against the stars, its weapon systems now openly charged and targeting Harmony's voice. Sarah could see smaller ships arriving to join the alien fleet, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels that would form the vanguard of the Empire's invasion force. Lieutenant Webb called out from his station. General, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout Caltharian space. It looks like their entire fleet is mobilizing. Sarah wasn't surprised. The Empire had been planning this for months, perhaps years. The diplomatic meetings had been nothing more than a formality, a way to give their actions the appearance of legitimacy. They had always intended to destroy human civilization. They had simply been waiting for the right excuse. General, Rodriguez said quietly. Incoming transmission from High Commander Jacques Tell. Personal channel, not military. Sarah nodded. Put it through to my ready room. And Lisa, this conversation stays between us. Jacques Tell's image appeared on the small screen, his crystalline skin cycling through colors that suggested deep emotional turmoil. General Chen, I am contacting you against direct orders from the War Council. High Commander, what can I do for you? I wanted to apologize for what is about to happen. Not all Caltharians support this action, but we are bound by the decisions of our leaders. Sarah studied the alien officer who had become something approaching a friend over the years of diplomatic contact. Jacques Tell, you don't need to apologize for doing your duty. I understand the position you're in. General, there is something you should know. The Empire has developed a new weapon, something we call the System Cleaner. It can destroy all life on a planet while leaving the infrastructure intact. War Commander Thekmore intends to use it on every human world that resists. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. A weapon that could sterilize entire planets meant that civilian evacuations were pointless. There would be nowhere to run. How many planets can it target? The Empire has constructed 12 system cleaners. Each one can destroy multiple worlds before requiring recharging. General, billions of humans will die in the first wave of attacks. Sarah felt the weight of that knowledge settling on her shoulders. She had to warn Earth Command, but she also knew the information would cause panic throughout human space. Jacques Tell, why are you telling me this? Because some of us still believe that this war is wrong. And because your species deserves to face its end with knowledge rather than false hope. Thank you for the warning, High Commander. It won't change our decision, but it will help us prepare. General Chen, there is one more thing. Thekmore has declared that you personally are a war criminal for inciting human resistance. He intends to execute you publicly as an example to other humans. Sarah managed a grim smile. Then I suppose I shouldn't make it easy for him. The transmission ended and Sarah immediately contacted Earth Command with the new intelligence. The reaction was everything she had expected: shock, horror, and desperate efforts to find some way to counter weapons that could exterminate entire worlds. President Vasquez appeared on the emergency channel, her face ashen. General, our scientists are analyzing your data. Early estimates suggest these system cleaners use some form of quantum cascade technology. There's no known defense. Madam President, what are our orders? Fight, General. Make them pay for every world they take and document everything for whoever survives this Holocaust. The galaxy needs to know what the Caltharian Empire truly is. The final hour passed in a blur of activity. Sarah returned to the bridge as warning klaxons began sounding throughout the ship. On the view screen, the Caltharian fleet had arranged itself in attack formation, with the battlecruiser's main guns now locked onto Harmony's voice. General, Webb reported, the Caltharians are hailing us. Put it on screen. War Commander Thekmore appeared, his skin now a brilliant crimson that seemed to burn with inner fire. General Chen, the deadline has expired. The Empire's final offer is this: surrender yourself for execution and your ship will be allowed to depart with a message for your government. And that message would be that humanity has exactly one standard day to begin total evacuation of all colonies within 200 light-years of Caltharian space. Any humans found in those systems after the deadline will be considered hostile combatants. Sarah laughed, a sound that seemed to infuriate the alien commander. War Commander, you're offering to let us abandon half our civilization in exchange for my life. That's not diplomacy, that's extortion. It is mercy, General. More mercy than your species deserves. Then here's humanity's counteroffer. Take your ultimatum and your system cleaners and see how many of your own worlds survive the war you're starting. Because, War Commander, you're about to learn something about humans that you clearly don't understand. And what is that? When you threaten to exterminate us, we don't surrender. We become more dangerous than you can possibly imagine. Thekmor's expression showed pure hatred. Then you die first, as an example to the rest of your species. The main guns of the Caltharian battlecruiser began to glow with gathered energy. Sarah turned to her crew, who were all at their stations despite knowing that their ship had no defenses against the weapons pointed at them. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor serving with you. Captain Rodriguez, send our final transmission to Earth Command. Tell them that humanity's answer to the Empire's ultimatum is this: we choose freedom. The Caltharian weapons fired, but in that moment before the energy beams reached Harmony's voice, something unexpected happened. The space around the diplomatic vessel erupted with the flash of emerging ships as a human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Harrison had positioned a task force in the outer system, hidden behind a gas giant, waiting for exactly this moment. The lead ship, the heavy cruiser Defiance, interposed itself between the Caltharian attack and Harmony's voice, its shields flaring as they absorbed the alien energy weapons. Suddenly, what had been an execution was now the opening battle of the greatest war in galactic history. Sarah watched in amazement as human ships engaged the Caltharian fleet, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. The war had begun not with the murder of a helpless diplomat, but with humanity showing that they would fight to protect their own, no matter the odds. Captain Rodriguez, Sarah called out as explosions bloomed around them. Get us clear of the battle zone. We have a war to document. As Harmony's voice accelerated away from the combat, Sarah realized that Thekmor had made a critical error. He had tried to start the war with an act of terror, executing a helpless human to intimidate the rest. Instead, he had given humanity exactly what they needed: proof that the Empire could never be trusted, and a rallying cry that would echo throughout human space. The 900 years of peace were over. But the Caltharian Empire was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength had never been their ability to make peace. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat. The battle between the human task force and the Caltharian fleet raged for 6 hours, turning the empty space around the diplomatic meeting point into a graveyard of shattered ships and expanding debris clouds. Sarah watched from the bridge of Harmony's voice as humanity's finest warships traded fire with alien vessels that were individually superior in every measurable way. Yet somehow, the humans were holding their own. General, Lieutenant Webb reported, his voice tight with concentration, the Defiance has taken critical damage to her port side, but she's still in the fight. Admiral Harrison is using formation tactics I've never seen before. Sarah studied the tactical display, recognizing the Admiral's strategy. Instead of fighting the Caltharians ship to ship, the human fleet was operating as a single coordinated unit, with each vessel supporting the others in rapid, flowing patterns that confused the alien targeting systems. It was brilliant improvisation born from the desperate knowledge that they couldn't win a fair fight. Captain Rodriguez, are we recording everything? Yes, ma'am. Full spectrum analysis, tactical documentation, everything. Earth Command will have complete records of Caltharian capabilities and human countermeasures. On the main screen, the Caltharian battlecruiser was trying to bring its massive main guns to bear on the human fleet. But the smaller, more agile human ships kept moving, never staying in one position long enough for the alien weapons to lock on. It was like watching tigers trying to catch a swarm of hornets. Then everything changed. A new contact appeared on the sensors. Massive, alien, and moving with the distinctive energy signature of a Caltharian dreadnought. The ship was 3 times the size of the battlecruiser, its hull bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. General, Webb's voice was barely a whisper. That has to be one of their system cleaners. The dreadnought didn't engage the human fleet directly. Instead, it positioned itself at the edge of the battle and began charging what could only be its primary weapon, the device that could sterilize entire worlds. Sarah realized with horror that they intended to test it on the human task force. Rodriguez, get me a channel to Admiral Harrison. Emergency priority. The Admiral's face appeared on screen, streaked with sweat and lit by the red glow of battle damage alarms. Sarah, good to see you're still alive. We're a bit busy at the moment. James, you need to withdraw immediately. They have a system cleaner charging up and you're about to become its first test target. Harrison's expression hardened. Negative, General. If we withdraw now, that thing will head straight for the colony worlds. At least here we can study its capabilities and maybe find a weakness, right? James, you can't fight a planet killer with cruisers and destroyers. Maybe not. But we can make them pay for every shot they take. Harrison out. Sarah watched in fascination and horror as the human fleet repositioned itself not to flee from the dreadnought, but to attack it. It was exactly the kind of impossible gesture that had earned humanity its reputation throughout the galaxy. When faced with certain death, they chose to charge forward rather than run away. The system cleaner fired. The weapon wasn't a beam or a projectile, but something that warped space itself. Reality seemed to twist around the human flagship Sovereign, and for a moment the massive cruiser simply vanished from existence. When space stabilized, there was nothing left. No debris, no energy signature, no trace that 800 people had ever existed. But the human fleet didn't break. Instead, they used the moment when the system cleaner was recharging to launch a coordinated assault on the dreadnought. Torpedo salvos and energy beams converged on the alien vessel's weapon systems, trying to damage the planet killer before it could fire again. General, Rodriguez said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. They want us to withdraw to safe distance and prepare for hyperspace jump. Sarah shook her head. Not yet, Captain. Someone needs to witness this. Someone needs to record how humanity faces extinction. The battle continued with desperate intensity. The human ships were being methodically destroyed by the Caltharian fleet, but they were inflicting damage in return. More importantly, they were learning. Each engagement revealed new information about alien capabilities, weaknesses that could be exploited, tactics that worked better than others. When the system cleaner fired again, destroying the heavy cruiser Indomitable, the remaining human ships had spread out in a formation that minimized the weapon's effectiveness. When it fired a third time, taking out the destroyer Fearless, the humans had learned to detect the charging cycle and were already moving before the weapon discharged. Admiral Harrison's voice came over the emergency channel, broadcast to all human ships in the system. All vessels, this is Harrison. We've learned what we came to learn. The system cleaner has a 47-second charging cycle, limited targeting flexibility, and creates a quantum resonance cascade that can be detected 18 seconds before firing. Our tactical data is complete. Sarah realized what he was doing. The Admiral had never intended to win this battle. He had intended to gather intelligence that might help humanity survive the coming war. The human task force had been sacrificed to learn the enemy's capabilities. All ships, execute withdrawal pattern Delta. We've done our job here. But War Commander Thekmore wasn't finished. As the surviving human ships prepared to jump to hyperspace, the Caltharian fleet moved to intercept them. The alien commander wanted to ensure that no human vessel escaped to carry word of the Empire's new weapons. General, Webb reported, the Caltharians are trying to block our hyperspace routes. They want to kill everyone who witnessed this battle. Sarah made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Captain Rodriguez, transmit our complete tactical data to all remaining human ships. Full spectrum burst, maximum power. Ma'am, that will reveal our position to the Caltharians. They'll target us immediately. Do it, Captain. That information has to reach Earth Command. The transmission went out, carrying everything they had learned about Caltharian capabilities and the terrifying system cleaner technology. Within seconds, every human ship in the IR system had the data they needed to survive and fight another day. It also painted a target on Harmony's voice that the Caltharians couldn't ignore. The alien battlecruiser turned toward them, its main guns charging. War Commander Thekmore's face appeared on their screen, his crystalline skin burning with rage. General Chen, you have interfered with Imperial operations for the last time. Your death will serve as an example to all humans of the price of resistance. Sarah stood up. facing the alien commander with all the dignity she could muster. "War Commander, my death will serve as an example of something else entirely. That humans would rather die free than live as slaves." The Caltharian weapons fired just as the last human warship jumped to hyperspace, carrying the tactical data that would help humanity survive the coming Holocaust. Harmony's voice disappeared in a brief, brilliant flash that lit up the surrounding space. But Sarah's final transmission was already racing toward Earth at the speed of light, carrying not just tactical intelligence but something far more valuable, proof that humanity would never surrender, no matter what weapons were turned against them. The first battle of the Second Galactic War was over. The Caltharian Empire had won a tactical victory, destroying most of the human task force and demonstrating their terrifying new weapons. But they had also made a critical strategic error. They had given humanity exactly what they needed to turn a hopeless war into a crusade. Martyrs whose sacrifice would inspire billions of humans to fight with a fury the Empire couldn't comprehend. War Commander. Thekmor had gotten his execution after all. But instead of intimidating humanity into submission, the death of General Sarah Chen became the rallying cry that united every human world in a common cause. The Empire had wanted to start the war with an act of terror. Instead, they had created a legend that would haunt them through every battle that followed. The galaxy was about to learn that killing a human general wasn't the end of human resistance. It was just the beginning. 3 years later, the galaxy had become a very different place. Admiral Marcus Webb, former lieutenant aboard the Harmony's Voice, stood on the bridge of the human supercarrier Sarah Chen, watching Caltharian ships burn in the space above the alien world of Thekmora Prime. The irony wasn't lost on him. They were attacking the homeworld of War Commander Thekmor, the alien who had started this war by murdering General Chen. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Rodriguez, who had survived the destruction of Harmony's Voice in an escape pod and now served as Webb's flag captain. "The planetary defenses are down. Ground forces are requesting permission to begin orbital bombardment." Webb studied the tactical display, where the once mighty Caltharian fleet was now scattered debris floating among human warships. The empire that had seemed so invincible 3 years ago was now fighting desperately to defend its core worlds from an enemy they had awakened but never truly understood. Negative on the orbital bombardment. "Captain, we're not here to exterminate civilians. Target military installations only, and broadcast surrender terms to the planetary government." It had taken 2 years for humanity to turn the tide of the war. The first year had been a disaster. System cleaners had sterilized 17 human colonies, killing nearly 3 billion people. Entire star systems had been evacuated as the Caltharian Empire advanced with seemingly unstoppable momentum. But the intelligence gathered during that first battle, paid for with General Chen's life and the sacrifice of Admiral Harrison's task force, had proven invaluable. Human scientists had worked around the clock to develop countermeasures for the system cleaners, eventually creating quantum dampening fields that could disrupt the cascade effect. More importantly, humanity had done what they always did when faced with extinction. They had adapted, innovated, and found ways to fight that their enemies never expected. "Sir," Rodriguez continued, "we're receiving a transmission from the planetary surface. It's War Commander Thekmor himself." Webb felt a cold satisfaction. "Put him on screen." The alien who appeared on the view screen was a shadow of the proud warrior who had started this war. Thekmor's crystalline skin was pale gray, the color of defeat and despair. His command uniform was torn and stained, and his 4 arms showed the tremors of exhaustion. "Admiral Webb." Thekmor's voice carried none of its former arrogance. "I remember you from that first battle. You served under the human female we executed." "Her name was General Sarah Chen," Webb replied coldly, "and she was worth a dozen of you, perhaps. Admiral, I am contacting you to discuss terms for the surrender of this system." Webb leaned back in his command chair. 3 years ago, he had been a junior officer watching his superior die. Today, he commanded the largest human fleet in history and was accepting the surrender of the alien who had murdered his mentor. "War Commander, the terms are simple. Unconditional surrender of all Caltharian forces in this system, immediate cessation of all system cleaner operations, and your personal surrender for war crimes tribunals." Thekmor's skin flickered with brief flashes of red. Admiral, surely there can be some negotiation. The Empire still controls significant territory and military assets. The Empire is finished, War Commander. In the past 6 months, we've liberated 43 Caltharian worlds. Your system cleaners have been neutralized, your fleets are scattered, and your government is in hiding. You started this war to eliminate the human threat. Instead, you've created exactly what you feared most, a united humanity that sees the Empire as an existential enemy. The truth was even more dramatic than Webb was willing to admit. The war had transformed human civilization in ways that surprised even their own leaders. The threat of extinction had forced unprecedented cooperation between human factions, leading to technological advances that had seemed impossible just years before. Human ships now used quantum displacement drives that made them faster than anything the Caltharians had ever built. Human weapons incorporated captured system cleaner technology, turned against its creators with devastating effect. Most importantly, human tactics had evolved beyond anything the rigid Caltharian military doctrine could counter. Admiral, Thekmor said quietly, what happens to my people if I surrender? Webb considered the question carefully. The human government had debated this issue extensively, how to deal with a species that had attempted genocide against humanity. Some faction wanted total extermination in return. Others argued for forced relocation to isolated systems. But President Vasquez had chosen a different path. War Commander, here are humanity's terms for the Caltharian Empire. Complete demilitarization of all Caltharian worlds. Reparations for the colonies you destroyed. Trial of all war criminals starting with you. And integration of Caltharian worlds into a new galactic government with human oversight. You would make us slaves? We would make you citizens of a civilization that doesn't solve problems by exterminating entire species. The Empire as you knew it is finished, Thekmor, but your people can have a future if they're willing to learn from their mistakes. The alien commander was quiet for several minutes, his skin cycling through colors that indicated deep internal struggle. Finally he spoke. Admiral, the human female you served under, General Chen, what would she have done in this situation? Webb smiled grimly. She would have done exactly what I'm doing. Sarah Chen believed that peace was possible between our species. But only if the Caltharians learned that military might doesn't give you the right to dictate terms to free peoples. And if I refuse your terms? Then you can join the 17 billion humans your system cleaners murdered. The choice is yours, War Commander. Thekmor's image flickered as he consulted with his staff. When he returned, his skin had settled into the blue of resignation. Admiral Webb, I surrender this system and all Caltharian forces under my command. I also surrender myself for trial as a war criminal. Wise choice. War Commander. As Caltharian ships began powering down their weapons and human marines prepared for occupation duties, Captain Rodriguez approached Webb's command chair. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. The Caltharian capital world has just announced its unconditional surrender. The war is over. Webb felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he had been carrying for 3 years. The Second Galactic War was finished, and against all odds, humanity had not only survived but emerged victorious. Captain, signal all ships. General Order 1. Any Caltharian vessel or installation that surrenders will be treated according to the laws of war. Any that continues to resist will be destroyed without mercy. Aye, sir. Admiral, what are your orders regarding War Commander Thekmor? Webb looked at the alien who had started a war by trying to intimidate humanity with murder. Take him into custody. The War Crimes Tribunal will decide his fate. But, Captain, make sure he's treated according to human standards of justice. We're not the Empire. We don't execute prisoners to make examples. As the Sarah Chen moved into orbit around the conquered Caltharian world, Webb made his way to the ship's memorial wall, where the names of every human who had died in the war were inscribed in letters of light. At the top of the list, in larger letters that seemed to glow with their own inner fire, was the name that had become the rallying cry for human resistance. General Sarah Chen, killed in the line of duty, never forgotten. Webb placed his hand on the memorial and spoke quietly to the image of his former commander. General, the war is over. The empire that murdered you is finished, and your sacrifice saved human civilization. The galaxy is going to be a very different place, but it's going to be a place where free peoples can live without fear of extinction. The memorial's surface rippled under his touch, displaying a holographic image of General Chen as she had been in life. Proud, determined, and absolutely uncompromising when it came to human freedom. War Commander Thecamore had thought that killing one human general would intimidate humanity into submission. Instead, he had created a legend that had inspired billions of humans to fight with a courage and determination that had reshaped the galaxy. The day the Empire gunned down humanity's woman general, 900 years of truce had indeed crumbled. But from the ashes of that peace had risen something far stronger, a human civilization that would never again allow any species to threaten their freedom. The galaxy had learned, at terrible cost, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat, no matter what the odds. And that was a lesson that would echo through the stars for millennia to come.